Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kelly Ishmael, and in this video, I'm going to show you my start to finish editing process for this photo. In this shot, I'm going to use a combination of Lightroom editing tools as well as some Photoshop tools to create a moody background with some rich tones, kind of giving an almost painterly vibe. Just to give you a little bit of background about this photo, I recently bought these heliobores at Trader Joe's of all places, and I planted them in the pots on my front porch, and it just looked so pretty. Just the combination of the beautiful tones of the heliobores and kind of the worn out, washed out pot that I have that I put them in. And so I decided to bring them into my studio to do a proper little photo shoot. And my inspiration for this edit would be like a Dutch painting with really beautiful, rich tones and a dark, moody background. So that's where I'm headed with this. So I'm here in Lightroom to get started. I'm going to use some tools in Photoshop, but first I'm going to go ahead and set up or do a few things here in Lightroom. I'm going to start by cropping my photo. And I know I've said this before, but whenever I'm doing a vertical photo, I prefer the 8:10 aspect ratio. So I'm going to select 8:10. Also, this is the grid overlay. I was using this for another project, but I think I will go ahead to this tools menu, and for my crop guide overlay, I'm just going to select the rule of thirds and then maybe pull this down. You can see here um, behind my main subject, I just have a big black board set up, and the light was coming in from the left-hand side. And the way the board, it's like a panel, like a school presentation panel. And so it's got a little bit of a shadow here, and then it's a little bit brighter. So those are some of the things that I'm going to deal with in Photoshop. But let's go ahead and take care of these things in Lightroom. And I want to crop out this little corner right here where went off the table. So maybe around here, I think I want to make sure not to crowd this up at the top. I don't want it to feel too cramped at the top. Maybe I'll just come down a tiny bit more. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay, with that cropping finished now, the next thing I'll do is select my preset, still using these presets from Pretty Presets, still loving this Muse 01 for the vintagey vibe that I just love. Um, I want to really enhance this rich burgundy color. So I might just back this off a tiny bit. I don't want it to be super washed out. I'm going to come over here to my basic panel, and I'm going to move this highlight slider to the left just a little bit to tone down some of the brightness here in the pot. It's just especially bright compared to the rest of the photo. So I think I can use the highlight tool to kind of bring down some of the highlights there. And then I think I will go ahead and add a little bit of texture and clarity just to give it a little more, um, just a little more texture, a little more grittiness. I think, let me come back to my crop and just straighten this little side. Straighten that just the tiniest bit. Just using this line here in my photo and using these handles on the corner just to slightly tilt it so it's a little more straight up and down. Okay, so that's got a lot of nice texture. I've kind of toned down the brightness of this urn here, and I will go ahead and add some sharpening and denoise because I did shoot it with an ISO of 1600. And I'm not going to add any vignette at this point. Um, well, I want to work on the background and then I'll decide if I need it, and I can do that in Photoshop if I need it. Anything else? I'm just looking, maybe I will, um, not reduce the saturation because the color is just what I love so much about these beautiful helibores. Make sure my lens corrections are handled here. That's fine. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say edit in Photoshop, and then this will pull in my image to Photoshop and I will meet you over there. Okay, now here in Photoshop, I've got my image pulled over here with all of my Lightroom edits. I'm going to use Command plus on my keyboard just to zoom in a little bit. You can also just hit the um, Z on your keyboard and you can just drag and move it around. I'm going to use my favorite tool, or one of my favorite tools, and that is the Content Aware tool. And I think what I'm going to try to do is, let me just zoom out. I'm going to do Command 0. I think what I'm going to try to do is make this darker area more like this area on this side of that bend of the board, and then I will deal with the entire board all together when it's the same color. That's my goal. So I'm going to zoom in here with my mouse, and I am going to get my lasso tool, and I am just going to draw around this corner. I have found that the Content Aware tool does better whenever I choose smaller areas. So I'm going to hit right click, I'm going to do fill, and I'm going to choose Content Aware and leave these default options, and I'm going to say okay. So let's see what happens. Okay, that'll work. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same thing. Fill Content Aware and say okay. No, that was not what I wanted. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let's try this again. Maybe if I don't get quite so close. Fill Content Aware. Here, that's better. Okay. Now, one note I want to show you about the select tool. The lasso is a type of select tool. So if I have this first new selection button checked, that means every time I drag and draw, it's going to make a new selection. If I have this button checked, which is the add to selection, it would create another. So now I've got two selections, or it'll add the new thing that I just drew around to the previous selection. I've already got that here, so let's just see what that looks like. It didn't really do much. I'm going to do Control Z on my keyboard, Command D to deselect, and just come back to the main selection tool. And then I'm going to just maybe get a little bit closer around that area that I would like to fill. Well, that's not exactly what I was hoping for. Let me try just this. That's the thing about Content Aware. You never really, really know what you're going to get. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Let's just try this small area. With Content Aware, I have found that there is just a lot of trial and error, unfortunately. But that's okay, because every time I trial and error, I learn something new. So I am here for that kind of learning. And I am just going to keep at this until I get this dark area filled in to look more or less like this lighter area here. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. I think that's going to be actually close enough. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is try to deal with this big horizontal It's just a crease in my big board. So what I might try to do is just this rectangular marquee tool. Just go over here. I'm just going to do the same thing. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. And let's just see what happens. Okay. Let's try a little bit bigger area this time just to smooth that out. That'll be just fine. Okay, and then there's a tiny bit more over here. Let me just try to do that. I'll stick with this marquee rectangular. Okay, that'll be fine. And then I think I'm just not going to mess. I think it'll be okay in there. We'll see. We can come back to that. Okay. I think that's going to be fine for now. Now, let's just see if we do a big fill in here, see what happens. Kind of just smooth that out as much as possible. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. All right. So I think what I would like to do is just select the background so that I can play with that piece of it without affecting the entire image. There are a few different types of selection tools that we can use. I'm going to start with, I think, the magic wand tool and just see where we get with that, see how that looks. So I've got the magic wand tool with the new selection only. This sample size and tolerance, I'm just going to start here and I'm going to use the anti-alias and contiguous options. And let's just see what happens. So I'm going to use the magic wand tool and then I'm just going to click on the background of my photo. Okay, I see where it's done pretty well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the add to selection because I want to click on some other areas and have it added to my selection area. So I'm going to select in here. That has added then to those main areas. Yes, this looks fine. What if I come over here? Yeah, that'll be okay. So now this whole area right in here, this is the area that I have selected. Maybe do I want to try that? Yes. And then maybe just that back corner. Great. Okay, so now this marching ants, you can see that those are the areas that I have selected. What about that? No, that's one too many. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say I want to create a new layer via copy. So I want to copy what I have selected and create a new layer. Okay, so if I turn off my main image, here is what I have selected. And this is the new layer that I have to work with. So right away, I can see where it's grabbed kind of this little outline of the scissors. I don't want to play with that. I don't want to change that too much. So I'm going to hit E on my keyboard for the eraser tool, and I'm going to hit Z on my keyboard, and I'm going to zoom in here and then E, I'm going to erase just this because I don't want to play with the scissors. The scissors are fine. It's just that background that I want to get. I don't think this is going to make a huge amount of difference, but we'll just do it to just to keep it to the background. There was one little area I saw that looked like maybe a little bit of a leaf was selected. Maybe I don't want to play with the leaf, but I don't know. I think that might cause a little bit of problem in the end. I'm just going to leave it for now. Command 0, that looks fine. I'm going to do Command S and save what I've got. And so now this is creating a PSD or Photoshop file that is separate from my original photo. So none of the pixels in my original photo are being changed. It's just creating a new file for me to work on in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm back here at Photoshop. And now what I want to do is I want to darken this background. And to do that, I'm going to use the curves tool. And that is down here at the bottom in this panel over here. So if I select the curves option, and what I would like to do is just deepen these darker or darken these dark, already dark areas of the photo. And I can do that by clicking on this line and just dragging it down. You might be familiar with this from it's similar to the tone curve in Lightroom if you use Lightroom a lot. So I'm just going to pull this kind of way down just to kind of create this deeper. And do you see how that's already really deepened that background? Here it is if I turn it off. This is before and this is after. Okay, that's doing what I wanted it to do. And actually I'm getting really the best amount of that here in this little spot. Okay, that looks great. I might also use the levels panel here, and I can play with making the darks darker by just dragging this slider. In the histogram, these are the pixels that are in the darker side, is the left side. So if I take this little arrow and I move it to the right, that's going to make the dark areas darker. And I can also move this mid-tone area. And do you see that's really darkening that entire background? So that's going to be great. All right, so if I turn my main image back on, notice what's happened. These curves and levels adjustments, they have they're being applied to all of the layers in my layers panel. I really only want the curves and levels to be applied to the background. And to do that, I can do Command Alt G on my keyboard, and that creates a mask or a clipping mask. It's being clipped just to this layer. And I can just take now this levels panel or this levels layer. If I click on the layer over here in that blank area, I can just pull it down and it will be also just clipped to this layer that I created from the selection. So here it is. This is without the adjustment to the background layer, and here it is with. So that automatically, that really enhances that whole like dark painterly background. I don't know. It might be just a little too much though. I'm going to come back to my curves panel. I'm going to double click here. Since I added the levels, maybe I can pull this up a little bit. I don't want it to be completely black. I mean, that would be unnatural and I'd be losing any sense of there's, light coming in from the left side. So this preserves some of that, some of the light there in the background. That looks really awesome. I love that. Okay. All right. So next what I would like to do is it's got the pretty tones from the preset that I used in Lightroom, but I can also do another type of, just give it a different look using the color lookup tool. And these are different tools that Photoshop have. Their lookup tables. It's similar to what a profile does, where it translates pixel data and then gives it different looks depending on the one that you choose. So these are the ones that come with Photoshop. There's several different types. So for instance, this would be the crisp winter. So it's kind of got a blue or wintry look to it. The ones I really like playing with are these film type lookup tables. So this is going to give it more of a vintagey film type of look. And I love that. I am going to back it off just a little bit And just one quick note. So the levels and the curves, I have them clipped to this background layer, but the color lookup is being applied to all of the layers in the panel. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, I love that. I'm really pleased with that. Maybe I'll just back that off a little bit more. One thing I might do also is do a photo filter. I might warm it up a little bit. There are several different types of warming filters, um, just with subtle different types of tones. Here's one that is a red, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. I typically use this first one though, and then I'm going to uh, reduce the opacity of that layer a little bit. Here it is without the warming filter, and this is with the warming filter. So it's pretty subtle. So here's my image without the color lookup and the photo filter, and here it is with the color lookup, and here it is with the warming filter. Yeah, I think that is great. I still am not super thrilled about this brightness in the urn here. So what I might do is, actually, I will come back to Lightroom and work on this Photoshop file in Lightroom. There's one little area over here that feels a little, it's the levels that feels just a little unnatural. I wonder what we can do here to, that's not what I want. I'm going to Z, and then I'm going to drag. What is going on here? Okay, why is this? I might erase some of this background layer. So I'm going to use E on my keyboard to bring up the eraser tool, and I want to bring the opacity. I just want to blend this out a little bit. So I think if I reduce the opacity and the flow, I think that will just kind of blend that out a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll leave the opacity back up and just the flow down. Well, let's try it the other way. We'll bring the opacity down and the flow up. What happens if I do that? I'm not feeling that either. Let's bring the opacity and the flow both way, way down. No. Let's see. How about this? What if I do a little bit of clone stamp? Let's do clone stamp. All right, so with clone stamp, basically I'm taking pixel data from one part of the image to another part. So it brings up this little circle. I'm going to use my right bracket key to make it a little bit larger. And to do this, I am going to hit Option on my keyboard, and it's going to basically like take a picture of those pixels, and then I can paint it here on my, no, I sampled the current layer, so there wasn't anything on that. So if I want to sample current and below. Okay, so now I'm going to do Option, and then I'm going to paint and just feather this out just a little bit so there's no harsh edges. So I'm just clicking along this harsh edge to get rid of this harsh edge. And that, I think, will be just a little more natural. This is a little, I don't know about that. Let's do Option and just kind of feather some of this out a little bit. I'm going to make my circle a little bit smaller using the left bracket key. So Option, just play around here to try. Nope, that grabbed a little bit of the branch there. Okay, I think that'll be fine. Command 0 to see the whole thing. Yeah, I think that's fine. It just looks like a little bit of a shadow over there. That'll be great. Okay, so I'm going to do Command S on my keyboard. And then I'm going to come back to Lightroom after it has processed that and brings that image up. Okay, so I'm back in Lightroom and I am working on my Photoshop file. Here's the original that just had the Lightroom adjustments. And then here is my Photoshop file where I worked on the background. And what I want to do now is I want to use a masking tool just to tone down some of the brightness in this flower pot. So I'm going to come over to my masking tools. I'm going to select the brush tool. I've got a pretty large, I might bring this down, and then I am going to select the darken preset there, and I might not do that, maybe just bring the highlights down. Okay, and I'm just going to use my mouse to paint over this pot here and make my mouse a little, or make my brush a little bit smaller using my left bracket key here. Yeah, I think that's going to be a little better. You can see here in this little thumbnail where the mask is being applied. Yeah, I think that's fine. Maybe bring the highlights down. Yes, that's what I wanted. I don't really want it darker. I just wanted that bright part of it to be less bright. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that looks awesome. All right. So I'm just going to do V on my keyboard. Oh, no, wrong program. I'm going to go back to V, bring it back to color. G on my keyboard to go back to the library, and then here is my finished image. And I love this. I love that really pretty moody background. I love the moody vibe of the whole thing. I love contrast, the different textures involved in it. So I think I'm going to stop here. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the tools that I used in Photoshop or any questions about Lightroom. And as always, thank you so much for watching.